Welcome to the Harun Rabbani podcast, and today is a very special episode because it's an area that everybody seems to neglect. It is the power of nutrition. I want to give you an example. Today, literally about an hour and a half ago, I was at the local gym and a young lady in her 20s was working hard. She worked out so hard that she fainted and she had an epileptic seizure. That's like, wow, what's going on here? And what it was she was trying to lose weight and trying to do it all through exercise. So here's the challenge. There are so many myths about keeping yourself healthy that the one element that people really don't pay attention to is the power of nutrition. I've talked about the power of sleep. I've talked about the power of rest and every other thing, but the power of nutrition is beyond imagination. So rather than me be the expert, I've brought in someone who is a phenomenal person because she not only lives and breathes what she's about to share with you, she also teaches it to others. She runs retreats and she's co-hosting my retreat for the first time with me later on this year. So welcome to the Harun Rabbani podcast, Nelia Freitas.
Thank you, Harun. That was very kind of you.
You're very welcome, Nelia. So you've got a number of backgrounds. One is yoga therapy, one is nutrition, but explain a bit more about what your expertise is so our listeners and our viewers truly get to grips with what we're about to share.
Well, what I do is holistic health coaching, and that brings in the different aspects of the person. So I bring in the nutrition is one aspect, but also looking at the person's physical state, their ability to move. And so my yoga therapy background comes in, and the way that they breathe. Many people spend a lot of time, running around. Of course, the body breathes naturally and without thinking, but the breathing is very shallow. And so therefore, it's almost like they're being taught how to breathe more deeply because it's something that, they struggle with. And then, of course, there's the aspect of their environment, their living lifestyle, the way that they live. They set up their home. They've got a lot of chemicals that they're in their house, both cleaning and for personal care. All of that gets put into consideration. And I look at things like toxic load, which includes both their living environment inside their home and outside their home, and so all of that gets put into consideration. And of course, their spirituality, their spiritual self, that aspect of what they do in order to be more in tune with their higher selves. So there's a, that hence the holistic focus on health.
One of the reasons I've invited Nelia to join me for my retreat was I've run up to now, I've run 27 retreats, and I think every single one of them are sold out as far as I recall. But here, something really caught my eye. So one of my retreats, in fact, all of them, I've provided food. I cook, I do the catering as well, because I want the food to be high as vibrational as possible. So I don't let anyone into the kitchen unless they're somebody who practices meditation and in a high state of emotional vibration. So no anger, no bitterness. So I ran this one retreat and everybody was having the most amazing meal. And this is where Nelly and I also met. And she and everybody else, on the final night, we decided we'll go to the local restaurant. And when we were at the restaurant, everyone, each man, each woman for themselves, they ordered whatever they wanted. But we're all horrified. Why? Because after such a solid, amazing weekend, including great nutrition, some of the food that people were consuming were mind-blowing. So get this, 65% of all hospital stays in the United Kingdom are related to chronic diseases. Chronic meaning lifestyle diseases, the way you live your life. That's what it means, lifestyle, right? A significant part of it is nutrition. So before we move any further, I want you to keep in your mind, as the listener, as a viewer, keep in your mind, what is your number one health challenge? Write it down. What is your number one one health challenge. Nelia, let's look at some of the biggest myths about nutrition. So fire away in your own time.
So one of the things that people sort of think in terms of myths is that, you know, one diet can support everyone. So these fad diets come up, social media and media in general cover, oh, this is the next best thing, lose weight fast or get your energy quickly and all the rest of it. And what's not really being taken into account is that we are very individual in our nutritional needs. Yes, we're all human beings, but we all have different needs. Some of us may have different conditions. Some of us may be predisposed to some conditions. And there may also be intolerances. What may be considered a healthy diet for one person may not actually work for another. That whole idea of one size fits all is not true when it comes to nutrition. Well, that's one of the myths that I would, sort of really hone in. And when I work with my clients, one-to-one, we really get down to the bare bones of what that means for that client, what type of diet are they on, and then look at what deficiencies they might have. So people might be looking at a healthy diet, but not fulfilling all their nutritional deficiency needs through that diet. And so an assessment is really needed to ascertain what those needs are.
What do you mean by assessment?
It is essential that when you're then trying to ascertain what is a healthy diet for you, a healthy diet will mean that you are getting from your food what you need. And so therefore an assessment that allows for identifying what those nutritional deficiencies are based on your current state of being, because our bodies change, and what may be a deficiency now may not have been 10, 15 years ago, but hormonal changes might kick in. So you might have to change some of your dietary habits or nutritional habits to be able to fulfill some of the deficiencies that might be occurring in your body. So I do an assessment that ascertains what those nutritional deficiencies are, and then make recommendations on whole foods, natural foods that may be able to then fill and correct, as it were, that nutritional deficiency. It doesn't mean that you will have no nutritional deficiencies, but it minimizes them. And in some cases, if the nutritional deficiency is so high, you might have to use supplements for a period of time whilst you are then working out how to bring those foods into your diet. So the next step really is to look at those diets, or perhaps meal plans, ways that you can fulfill your nutritional needs and get the most out of them, so that the aim is for optimal health. And it doesn't matter what age you are, there's always room for optimal health. And what you can do, in essence, with meal plans, with fine-tuning all the nutritional deficiencies that might have been flagged for you, and then looking at actual meal plans that work to help you fulfill those deficiencies. Following the, cookie cutter diet plans would lead to missed opportunities in really honing in on what it is that you're needing. So you might find that in actual fact, it's magnesium that you're deficient in rather than calcium. And yet people will take multivitamins and could be overdosing on nutrients that they don't actually need. So being able to do a more personalized nutrition plan will focus more on what you actually need rather than what the mass population is talking about.
Why is personalized nutrition such key to success in your health?
So the first thing in a personalized nutrition plan is that you get improved digestion, energy, and mental clarity from the recommendations, from finding out what those nutrients are that you're missing. For many people, the brain fog, the lack of energy is a real issue, especially as we get into our 40s and our 50s, because our bodies are changing, hormones are changing, and we start to realize that those diets that sustained us in our 20s and 30s are no longer working for us. And there's reasons behind that. And a lot of the time, from the experience that I've had with my clients, it's down to nutritional deficiencies. So the nutritional deficiency assessment then helps to identify what the needs are, what the deficiencies are, which then leads to the next step, which would be to have tailored food choices that support your unique body's needs. And we focus on that both through supplements and looking at the different natural foods that can be used to support you through that journey.
It's interesting about the whole thing about tailored food needs because a lot of my family members, for example, they've tried to be healthy, so they have porridge, and generally it fills them. When I have porridge, for example, it does nothing for me. In fact, I almost feel more hungrier by the time, like an hour's passed. So I can certainly understand why tailored food needs are important. So then what else? What else happens when you have a more personalized nutrition plan?
As you start taking the steps that you need to include those nutrients that you're deficient in, perhaps use the supplements to help break a cycle, and you will start to find that your health improves and over time becomes more sustainable because you're actually giving your body what it needs at this phase in your life to be able to achieve that optimal health.
You're on the Harun Rabbani podcast, and I want to ask you this. What nutrients do you think are missing? For example, this morning, I heard a call. I got a call from my mom. She said, "Your dad's getting cramp on his legs," and I said, "Okay, get him to pull out the magnesium spray, use it on his legs, and give it a couple of minutes." And apparently, it worked. Already, that's an indication he's lacking in magnesium. How about yourself? So, what do you think is missing? So, what are the real big benefits of knowing nutritional deficiency besides creating a wonderful tailored food plan?
Well, the overall health and well-being that you will experience as a result of fine-tuning those nutritional needs. The body has millions and millions of chemical reactions to keep it functioning normal. So that every system in our body requires certain nutrients to function properly and to function normal. Bringing those nutrients in actually allows our different systems, so circulatory system, nervous system, and this is, and skeletal, muscular, and you mentioned magnesium in terms of, cramping, and this is something that happens to many people where there's aches and pains, and you associate it with becoming older, but yet is it just because we're becoming older, or is it really that we're deficient in that nutrient and it's not there to support us through our health into old age? it is really important to bring that in and make it an option for you rather than reaching out for that, pain pill or whatever, rather than thinking, okay, maybe it's just a matter of adding something to even my daily regime that will help me with my health overall.
And so if you're struggling to understand why is it that we're a lot more nutrient deficient, why aren't we getting enough from our foods? Several reasons, by the way. I have to say one is the mass farming methods over the decades, many, many decades, over 100 years of mass farming, maybe more, has depleted the soil. They don't, I grow my own stuff. I know Nelia does as well. The biggest element of growing your own food is the quality of soil. And I have to say, with all the chemical fertilizers that goes in and the constant using of the same soil again and again, we've got a lot less nutrients in all the foods that's coming through. I get, Nelia, that understanding your own deficiency is important. Can you walk me through your process of how you deal with a client from start to finish, please?
I take my clients through an initial journey where they give me a detailed health history of their eating habits, what type of diet they're currently on, their sleep patterns, their movements. So, how mobile they are. Do they exercise, or are they more sedentary in terms of their, movement habits? And then I also look at what exposure they have to things like electromagnetic frequency. So all our smart gadgets, how many do they have in their home? Are they glued to their phone all day? Or, do they give themselves a digital break? So all of this gets a look into. And so it's quite a detailed history that I take because it's very much relevant in the way that I then later on help my clients. From that, we then go into a nutritional deficiency assessment, which takes about 90 minutes. And it takes that long because there's quite a long list of nutrients that are essential for the body just to function normal. And their symptoms, it's based on a symptomology assessment that are associated with those deficiencies. And chances are, if you're deficient in one vitamin or mineral that requires another vitamin or mineral to work together, you'll be deficient in both. The chances are quite high. And the report that follows from that assessment, then, depending on the level of deficiencies, the report can be anywhere from 4 to 8 pages long. So it can be, and it's very detailed. And the information in that report includes recommendation of natural foods that you can incorporate. So usually the top 3 to 4 natural foods that you can incorporate into your diet, which will, in that report, are also recommendations for supplements, if required, to be able to break the cycle, to help you get that nutrient as soon as possible. Because sometimes building a habit, around introducing new foods into your repertoire could take a while, and you will need that nutrient in your diet sooner rather than later. You need it immediately. So the report includes recommendations both for food and supplements. And then you have a follow-up session with me, which is about an hour. And it's usually booked sort of a week later. So it gives you time to read through the report, absorb it, come up with questions, and then the follow-up session, which is really a coaching session to help you better integrate the information you're given in this report. The final session, the third session, is where I do a toxic load assessment and an antioxidant assessment. Now, a lot of nutritional professionals, they just look at, sort of the essential nutrients and don't even give antioxidants a look. But in actual fact, I think all of us who have any interest in health know how important antioxidants really are to incorporate into our diet. So having an assessment which identifies whether we are in fact deficient in these essential phytonutrients. Because they're phytonutrients, they're not clubbed in with the essential nutrient list. However, they are really important in order for our body to function at its optimal health.
I was interviewing earlier today, and the recording, I don't know which will go out first, your recording or his, but Dr. Ali Ajaz, who's a forensic psychiatrist and a scientist who specializes in ADHD. And we were talking specifically about women and ADHD, and we covered some elements of nutrition, only in a small amount. And we've done an entire episode on nutrition. Here's the challenge. He's a doctor, he's a medical trained doctor, and he says, Harun, out of all the years of training that they've given me as a doctor and then as a psychiatrist, I've had zero lectures in nutrition. Zero. And thankfully, he's the type of person who actually very much advocates your approach, Nelia. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but in terms of what you do, it's like taking the science of science of health, forget holistic, because this is it. It's, we don't have to say holistic or separate because it is all holistic. The science of health to another level. So let's jump on to the next myth. Because you've given so much valuable information here. So myth number 2.
Basically, a lot of people have this idea that eating healthy is boring and restrictive. I think depending on their personal experiences, some people will consider that, it's just leafy green food, the kind of food that rabbits would eat, and really associate healthy food with undesirable food. And that is definitely a myth, because as you and I know, but when we've explored and experimented with food, the multitude of flavors and colors, and the more colorful the food, and this is leading almost back to not just from a physical health perspective, but also from a mental health and spiritual health, is that colorful food actually means that we are giving ourselves all the nutrients that we need for the various aspects of our body. So if you think of the chakras, for example, as having these beautiful rainbow colors, well, having foods from those various rainbow colors will also associate with fulfilling the nutritional needs of those parts of our body. So all of those organs and glands that are associated with that energy center will be getting exactly what they need.
Shall we give our viewers, now this is more for the viewers, a quiz, but just for those who are listening on the Spotify or any of the audio podcasts, we're about to show something. So do you want to explain what we're showing, Nelia? So, and what's your question?
So the question is, out of these 4 options, which is the healthy option?
So the options we're looking at is a glass of tap water, a glass of red wine, a bottle of old school Coca-Cola, and a freshly squeezed orange. Obviously, we both know the answers because we've discussed this. Do you want to walk through them one by one, Nelia? I mean, the most unhealthiest is, without hands down, I know you're going to say Coca-Cola, right? Because
Coca-Cola, outside of the fact that it's got a lot of additives and chemicals in it that will wear down the lining of your stomach, that size of Coke bottle has roughly about 3 tablespoons of sugar.
by the way, one of the things I found out the hard way ages ago, it also depletes your magnesium source. So I found in the past when I've drunk Coca-Cola, whatever brand it is, obviously I go for the usual brand, I end up with leg cramps. Isn't that interesting?
Well, to further that comment, what I would add is that drinks like Coca-Cola put what's called an anti-nutrients into your body. And anti-nutrients basically means that they're not bringing any nutrition into the body, but what they are doing is they're using up a lot of nutrients from the body to actually allow the body to get rid of it. So we become deficient, not just because we're not eating the right foods, but because we're eating foods that bring introduce anti-nutrients into the body and are depleting our bodies from the nutrients that we actually need and want to keep to get rid of those substances.
What about red wine? I mean, come on, you get a lot of resveratrol from it. Apparently, a glass a day will keep the doctor away. Your thoughts on that?
A lot of people have that theory, and resveratrol is really important element actually, and you get that in blueberries too. The problem with red wine is the content of sugar, and of course in the form of alcohol, and this affects how our body absorbs nutrients as well. And so by introducing alcohol, sorry, those of you who love to drink wine, what in essence you are doing is you're also introducing anti-nutrients. So it's going to take the body a lot of our nutrient reserves to get rid of that substance from our body. So yeah, it might give us a sort of momentarily, a nice feel to drink a glass of wine with a meal. However, bearing in mind that some nutrient deficiencies occur because we are using up nutrients to get rid of substances like alcohol, red wine being one of them.
Okay, surely the tap water must be good for you.
Tap water is considered one of the top 10 most toxic things that you can consume because a lot of the local water supply systems add chemicals like fluoride, like chlorine, as well as other elements to kill bacteria and to make it so-called clean. However, there is heavy metal toxins that also get carried through these long, old piping systems that most places still have. And in the UK, although I'm sure there's been a lot of efforts to remove a lot of the lead pipes, but I'm sure there's still quite a lot of them around. And it is something that I've experienced living in the UK myself, which I'm now going through and clearing a heavy metal detox I'm having to go through just from drinking tap water that went through a Brita filter, by the way. So we are thinking that, yes, our body needs water and it's a great habit, go to the tap, and drinking water is not ideal unless you've got a filter or a mini filter system that can remove not only the chemicals out of that system. And by the way, boiling the water does not get rid of all the stuff, that gets deposited in the water. It's listed as one of the top 10 most toxic things that you can consume.
Just to put your mind at rest, you can get hold of, if you can afford it, of course, not everyone can. You want to get a really high quality filtration system. And if you can't, then a Brita filter is better than nothing, but there are qualities. There are different qualities of filters you want to be looking at and get them tested or look at independent reviews of them. So I presume then the squeezed orange juice must be the healthy item then.
It is. A lot of people buy orange juice already in bottles, and they're also really high in sugar. But if you are drinking the orange juice of a freshly squeezed orange, not only are you getting the vitamin C that and all the other antioxidants that come with it, but the fiber that you are getting from the orange is very much needed for our gut biome and also for the intestines to be able to have everything move through nicely. So yeah, out of those four, definitely it is the freshly squeezed orange
With the pulp.
juice.
Always include the pulp, and that's the key part.
That's right. The
Um,
pulp is something, yes, and this is where, a lot of the questions around juicing versus smoothies. And, the thing with the juicing is that it goes through the system very quickly, and you need the pulp or the fiber from the fruit to slow the digestion of those juices. Otherwise, they just go through you as opposed to being absorbed. So the nutrients require the fiber to hold them in our bodies.
what are the negative impacts of restrictive diets? You already mentioned that they're not good for you. So any kind of extreme diet, extreme carnivorism, and extreme veganism, and whatever. So tell me about the negative impacts.
The negative impacts are many, but what I'll speak about here is that when you restrict yourself to one particular diet for a long period of time, although you may be losing the weight, because for most people, restrictive diets is about weight loss. What you're not taking into account then is the impact it's having on your nervous system, on your endocrine system, yeah, on your overall circulatory system. So yes, people tend to focus on, the appearances. We're losing this weight, but how are they really feeling inside? How are they actually feeling in terms of an overall health? Fatigue, brain fog, weakness in muscles and extremities. And these restrictive diets can lead to severe nutritional deficiencies.
And one of the things I've found, and I won't mention his name, but a good friend of mine was on one of these vegetarian juice. It was a green juicing diet. Now, keep in mind, this guy doesn't like vegetables. He doesn't like salads. He calls anything that looks green rabbit food. So, anything that looks healthy. He was on a juicing diet for a couple of weeks. And I said, so how did it go? He goes, I'm managing through. It's very highly motivational to himself. But he was going to the toilets all the time with diarrhea. Of course, with all that diarrhea, you're going to lose your gut biome. And the gut biome is massively related to your immunity. So over the space of 2 weeks, he lost a lot of weight by eating food he hates and diarrheaing out most of the time. And then later on, not only did he gain it back, he gained a lot more back. And also he lost all the motivation that he already had about losing his weight. So in the end, he ended up gaining a lot more weight than he originally had. So without dwelling on the negativities of it all, because I've just covered a very big area, what are the possibilities if people were to consider, that hey, it doesn't have to be restrictive. It could be there's what are the possible possibilities for people to reconsider tweaking or amending the way they eat or what they eat?
If people approach their eating habits in a way that they're not demonizing certain things, like fats, for example. Our brain is 98% fat, but yet the media and the mass public think that it's okay to just cut out fat from the diet and, oh, I'll lose weight. Okay, you might lose weight, but then you'll get brain fog, you'll get memory issues, you'll get concentration issues. And then if your brain isn't functioning properly, you'll get other possible issues that, may lead to complicated health conditions. Other things like carbs, demonizing carbs, like it's a really bad word nowadays, and actually, where do we get all our energy from carbs? I think there's a real need for realizing that all the main nutrients are necessary for the body to function normal. And it's just about finding a balance that works for each individual that's going to produce the results that they're looking for, but that are sustainable over a long period of time without causing other side effects.
What's your third and final myth?
Third and final myth that we are covering, based on there's many others that we can do, are that we cannot change our habits. We can change our habits, and it takes time, it takes motivation, and it takes 66 days to actually form a new habit.
I used to hear this thing, oh, you can lose weight or gain muscle in 7 days or 21 days or 30 days. I've heard this for the last 3, 4 decades. And being a martial artist, being someone who's very much into fitness and health, it is the biggest load of nonsense going. And I geeked out. And then later on, a chap wrote a book by the name of Atomic Habits. Basically, a study was done by Philippa Lally, psychologists at University College London, and they took a number of behavioral changes and tested them out. And they found that on average, it doesn't take 30 days, it doesn't take 100 days, but it takes on average 66 days to make something which is a new behavior into a natural skill, something that's, they call it achieving automaticity, which basically means, simple way of saying it, it forms a habit. This is why I asked Nelia to join our retreat, is not because the retreat is 2 days, 3 days long, however long it is, but the fact that the plan is to help people hold their hands and support them from beyond 66 days. In fact, minimum 90 days, I should say 99, 90 days. So Nelia, when you do any kind of nutritional coaching, can you explain the biggest challenges and obstacles people face and why you do at least 12 weeks at a time?
So I take them through the journey once they've decided that they need their handheld on their journey, because some people are great action takers and they take the advice that I give them and then they put it into practice. And for people who are used to working that way, then that's great. But there are many who need the support, need the hand holding through the process. And so I take them through various steps of small baby steps every week, where they then put some of the recommendations into practice. I help them with some recipes that they can immediately start to use that are tailored for them. Yeah, so the recipes are not just random recipes, they are recipes that then incorporate things that they're already doing, so that the changes can be gradual and they start to see the difference straight away. So they also get some guidance, if need be, in terms of the movements that they can do. So some of them might have aches and pains that they're struggling to be able to get out to a gym, for example, or some people try and avoid the gym altogether. And then they can do practices with me, helping them, coaching them through that, that allows their body to get used to doing certain movements that are very simple and easy. Some of them can do it, even in their breaks, if they're at work or at home, in the comfort of their own home, rather than having to go out and do things. But there's also the focus on the breath and breathing techniques. Some of them may need that assistance, and I show them techniques that they can then go away and practice for themselves. So week on week, they get little tasks that are achievable, from week to week and build on the previous week's tasks. So, and that's the whole idea around building the new habit. So they then schedule the different things that they do every week, and it builds on the previous week's work.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm getting very excited because I tell you why, as I'm hearing it, and I've never in my 28 retreats or 27 retreats ever had a co-host on purpose. The reason being is that to do a transformational journey, it is so important that the right people are there. It's not that basically I've not come across the right persons to come and join me. Whereas what you're covering, and because you're so highly trained in holistic coaching, the spiritual aspect, my retreats are about grounding, letting go, meditation, breath work, movement, forest bathing. So what you're bringing to the table is something that anybody can do. You don't need, once you're up and running, once you've done the 12 weeks with yourself, then you're changed for life, and the level of confidence is at another level. And a lot of people say, including my own parents, have struggled with change when it comes to nutrition. But my mother's in her 70s. She's like 78 or 79, something like that, right? Asian, we don't know the exact ages. She's late old. But the point was, yesterday, she was in the gym doing a weight training workout with my sister. How amazing is that to be at that age to start that from new? But she also does the other thing, which is yoga. Now, one thing you do, Nelia, which is I think people don't realize how important this is. When you're trying to deal with stress and hormonal shifts and hormonal changes, and you think, okay, I need to get fit, I need to go to the gym, it might be the very wrong thing to do. Why? Because at the gym, when you're lifting weights, when you're doing cardiovascular exercise, when you're doing HIIT training, what are you doing? You are boosting your stressor hormones, your adrenaline, noradrenaline, very importantly, cortisol. You're activating your sympathetic nervous system, which is all about fight or flight. When in truth, you need to be activating your rest and digest, your relaxation, your rejuvenation system called the parasympathetic nervous system. Nelia, from my bottom of my heart, I really think we can just go on and on today, but we won't. We want to keep it to nutrition for now. What is the best way for people to get hold of you if they wanted to have a personal nutritional workout with you for 12 weeks, or even focusing on those 3 or 4 sessions that you do with your nutritional deficiency assessment? What is the best way to connect with you?
The best way to connect with me would be to email me at my email address is nelia@holisticmenopausementor.com. And then we can have a chat and see where we can go from there.
Is there any final message of hope you can share with people regarding their nutrition?
Yes, and it is never too late to change your habits in nutrition. It just starts with the first step, and the first step of being aware that that's something that you need to do.
Nelia Freitas, it really has been a deep, deep pleasure. Can I ask you a favor? Can I ask you to come back and do another episode with me? Not just nutrition. I think we need to do one entirely on breath work, on anxiety, stress management. Are you okay to do that?
That would be my absolute pleasure, Harun. I'd love to come back and talk to your audience some more about all of that.
Perfect. Thank you. You have been watching the Harun Rabbani podcast with my very special guest, Nelia Freitas. Truly an amazing individual. If you want to find out more about my retreat, comment below or just get hold of me through one of the social media channels. All the details are in the description. Bye for now.